She is ranked inside the world's top 50. She has beaten a world number 2, a world number 5, and a former Roland Garros finalist in the last 12 months. She reached the top 30 in March, faster than almost any Filipino athlete has ever climbed any global ranking in any individual sport. And right now, on clay, she is 2-3. Not 2-3 in a bad tournament. 2-3 across her entire 2026 clay campaign. 3 stops in, 2 wins in 5 matches, a 1-6-4-6 dismissal in Stuttgart, a 2-6-1-6 exit in Madrid that wasn't even competitive by the middle of the second set. This is not the version of Alex Eala that became a global tennis story, but here is why the next 2 weeks in Rome may be the most important stretch of her season, and possibly the most revealing test of whether her rise is permanent or a hard court phenomenon waiting to be exposed. To understand what clay does to Eala's game, you need to understand what her game is built on. Eala plays left-handed. Her natural weapon is a cross-court ball to an opponent's backhand that becomes sharper, heavier, and harder to redirect the longer the rally continues. On hard courts, that ball lands at the edge of the service box and stays low. The exchange is short. Her court positioning, her reading of pace, and her ability to redirect clean ball striking work inside a rhythm that hard courts create naturally for her. Clay compresses none of that. Clay gives the ball more time. It sits up. It invites the opponent to reset, reposition, and attack second balls. And crucially, clay punishes a serve that isn't already functioning as a weapon. Because if you cannot win free points off first delivery, every service game becomes a survival exercise. Eala's first serve won 64.7% of service games on tour this year, 87th on the WE Tour. Her second serve points won rate sits at 37% in some clay matches this spring, per coach Joan Bosch's own acknowledgement. That number, on this surface, against the field in Rome, is a structural liability. The Italian Open is not a warm-up. It is the third largest women's tennis event in Europe behind Wimbledon and Roland Garros itself. The 2026 field entered at Foro Italico includes Aryna Sabalenka, Iga Swiatek, Coco Gauff, Jessica Pegula, Elena Rybakina, Mira Andreeva, Jasmine Paolini, Emma Raducanu, Naomi Osaka, and Karolina Muchova, who beat Eala 6-0, 6-2 in Miami just 5 weeks ago. Elise Mertens, who just dispatched Eala 6-2, 6-1 in Madrid, is also in the draw. Last year at this same event, Eala lost to Marta Kostyuk in the first round by a score of 6-0, 6-1. She did not win a single game in either set. That is the baseline she is trying to move from. Rome does not offer soft draws and confidence builders. Rome offers Grand Slam winners in the third round, clay specialists who have spent 15 years learning to win on red dirt, and a surface that has historically separated Eala from the best version of herself. Here is what still isn't solved, and it needs to be said plainly. Eala's serve, at the Wada level on clay, is not a weapon, it is a liability. Her second serve, in particular, invites immediate aggression from opponents who have studied her patterns. Rappler's data shows she won just 3 of her 10 clay matches dating back to 2024. Her career WTA clay win-loss record sits at 4-8. Her clay win rate in the last 52 weeks at WTA level is 28.6%. Tony Nadal, the man who built the greatest clay court player in history, was brought in for a session at the Rafa Nadal Academy this spring specifically to address these numbers. That is both a mark of how seriously the team is treating the problem and a reminder of how real the problem is. Even Rafa Nadal himself publicly noted, after watching her play in 2025, that she needed to be more aggressive with her serve at key moments. Beyond the serve, there is a pattern that shows up in Eala's results when matches turn against her, a difficulty in changing the score. Against Muchova in Miami, she won 2 games. Against Mertens in Madrid, she won 3. When Eala's primary plan stops working, she has not yet consistently demonstrated a plan B capable of resetting a match at the elite level. That is not a criticism of her ceiling. It is an accurate description of where she is right now, at 20 years old, still building. And building, honestly, is more compelling than a story that pretends the work is already done. There is something worth documenting about what happens when Alexandra Eala walks onto a court, any court, on any continent. The Foro Italico in Rome is not a Filipino venue. It is an Italian national monument built in the 1930s, surrounded by marble statues and the weight of European tennis history. And when Eala plays there in the first week of May, there will be Filipinos in the stands who flew from Manila, from Dubai, from London, from Los Angeles, specifically to watch a 20-year-old from Quezon City hit a tennis ball. She described described it herself, "There are very few nationalities that I see are as loud and proud as us." That is not an exaggeration. The 2025 Miami semifinal drew the kind of viewership that crashed Philippine cable networks at midnight. Her Instagram reach extends across Southeast Asia in a way that no Filipino individual sport athlete has matched in the social media era. The social post that launched this video tapped into something real. The sight of Eala grinding on clay, alone, preparing for a test she hasn't passed yet, is genuinely moving to the diaspora because it is recognizable. It is the immigrant work ethic rendered in tennis whites. It is the idea that being behind the curve is not the same as being out of the race. Here is the context that most coverage misses. Eala's clay problem is not a Filipino problem. It is a hard court era problem. The women's tour has, over the last decade, tilted structurally toward baseline power and flat ball striking, the tools that reward hard court aggression. Players who emerged through hard court systems, who peaked at Miami and Indian Wells, have consistently faced a recalibration period on clay. Emma Raducanu won the US Open on hard courts and spent 2 years learning how to translate her game to clay. Victoria Azarenka, Serena Williams, and Maria Sharapova all went through extended periods where clay required a fundamental tactical shift that hardcourt dominance alone could not shortcut. Eala's Rafa Nadal Academy background means she has the clay muscle memory from years of training. The question now is whether that foundation, built at 15, translates to match intensity at 44 in the world, against opponents who have played Roland Garros for a decade. That translation takes time, and watching someone attempt it in real time, in Rome with a Grand Slam qualification on the line, is a compelling tennis story, regardless of where you are watching from. If you want coverage of Eala that goes beyond the highlights, the stats, the surface data, the ranking math, and the honest read on where she is in her development, subscribe and hit the bell. We track her entire season, every tournament, every surface, every pattern. You will not miss what happens in Rome. Let's look at this without sentiment. Eala has 2 wins and 3 losses on clay this season. She has not passed the second round in any of her 5 clay tournaments since 2024 at WTA level. She lost 6-0, 6-1 in Rome last year. She enters the 2026 Italian Open, having just been beaten 6-2, 6-1 by a player seeded 19th in Madrid, a result that was not close. The what a race puts her at 17 year-to-date, which reflects a genuinely strong 2026 hardcourt season. But year-to-date points and surface-specific development are different things. Her coach has openly said clay is where she is greenest. Her serve stats on clay this spring would not hold up against anyone inside the top 40. And the Rome draw, with Sabalenka, Swiatek, Gauff, and Muchova all present, does not provide a soft re-entry into form. What is true is that she has almost no points to defend in Rome, just 10. Every win she earns is a net gain. A quarter-final would put her back above 35. A semi-final would push her into the top 30 again. But those results require beating players who, on this surface, have beaten her before. Preparation is real. The question is whether 3 weeks of adjustment is enough to rewrite a surface story that has been consistent since 2024. 3 tournaments define the next 5 weeks of her season. Rome is the diagnostic. It tells her, and the tennis world, whether her serve development has reached a functional threshold on clay. First round exit repeats 2025. A quarterfinal changes the conversation. If she exits in the first week in Rome, Parma follows immediately, a WTA 125 event where she is likely to be among the higher seeds. Parma is not a consolation prize. It is match volume on clay against varied opponents, the exact ingredient her clay record says she needs. Every clay win at any level adds to a body of evidence that is currently underweight. Roland Garros begins May 24. She drew a first-round loss there in 2025, her first Grand Slam main draw. She will enter Paris ranked somewhere between 35 and 45, with or without a seed. Her goal, per her public statements, is a first Roland Garros main draw win. That goal is achievable. Her hardcourt ceiling, top 29, wins over top 10 players, a WTA 1000 final, tells you she belongs at this level. Clay is a separate exam, and Rome, starting May 5th, is the next test paper. This channel covers Alexandra Eala as a developing player still building, because that framing is both accurate and more compelling than treating a 20-year-old as an arrived legend. She is working on clay. She is doing it at the Rafa Nadal Nadal Academy, with Tony Nadal looking over her shoulder. She chose Rome over Catalonia when she could have taken the easier path. That tells you something about her and the team around her. The Italian Open begins May 5th. We will cover her draw, her opponents, and her results in full. The question for the comments: is the clay work Eala is putting in right now a temporary adjustment problem that resolves itself by Roland Garros, or is clay going to be a consistent ceiling that limits how high she can climb in the rankings long term? Leave your read below. We'll revisit it after Paris.